द वे फॉरवर्ड इज थोड़ा बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। मैं थोड़ा होस्ट हरजोत सिंह। 2024 ਦੀਆਂ ਜਨਰਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨਸ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਈਆਂ ਔਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਵੇਖਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਪਬਲਿਕਨਸ ਦੇ ਫੇਵਰ ਵਿੱਚ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੋਟ ਪਾਈ ਹੈ। ਇੱਕ ਰੈੱਡ ਵੇਵ ਦੇਖੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਮੁਲਕ ਵਿੱਚ। ਰਿਪਬਲਿਕਨ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਫਾਰਮਰ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਡੋਨਾਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ एक बड़ी रिसाउंडिंग विक्ट्री नाल सामने आए और दोबारा प्रेसिडेंट चुने गए। जनवरी 20 2025 ਨੂੰ ਉਹ ਦੁਬਾਰਾ ਯੂਐਸ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਬਣਾਂਗੇ। ਲੋਕਲ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਿ ਇਲੈਕਟਰਲ ਕਾਲਜ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਵੋਟਸ ਹਨ ਉਹ ਤੇ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੈਟਿਕ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਕਮਲਾ ਹੈਰਿਸ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲੀਆਂ, ਬਟ ਇਹ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਗਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਡੋਨਾਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਲਈ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਪਈਆਂ, ਪਹਿਲੇ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਪਈਆਂ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਵਿੱਚ। ਔਰ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਲੋਕਲ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਸੀਗੀਆਂ ਪਾਰਟਿਕੂਲਰਲੀ ਔਨ ਦ ਆਈਲੈਂਡ, ਉਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਰਿਪਬਲਿਕਨਸ ਦੀ ਇੱਕ ਕਾਫੀ ਜਿੱਤੋਂ ਦੇਖੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ, ਕਾਫੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵੱਲ ਵੋਟਾਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਪਈਆਂ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਇਨਵਾਈਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਨਿਊਯਾਰਕ ਸੈਨੇਟ ਡਿਸਟ੍ਰਿਕਟ 2 ਦੇ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਕ੍ਰੇਗ ਹਰਸਕੋਵਿਟਸ, ਜੋ ਇਲੈਕਸ਼ਨ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਮਹਿਮਾਨ ਬਣੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀਗੀ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਏਜੰਡੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਔਰ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਪਫੁਲਨੈਸ ਦੱਸੀ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਐਂਡ ਇਵਨ ਐਟ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸ਼ੀਅਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੈਟਸ ਲਈ ਇੱਕ ਅੱਛਾ ਮਾਹੌਲ ਲੱਗ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, ਇੱਕ ਅੱਛੀ ਇੱਕ ਵੇਵ ਨਜ਼ਰ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ। ਉਹ ਇਹ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਬਟ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਉਹਦਾ ਦੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਏ। ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਫਿਰ ਇਨਵਾਈਟ ਕੀਤਾ ਹੈ ਕ੍ਰੇਗ ਹਰਸਕੋਵਿਟਸ ਨੂੰ ਔਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਕੀ ਫੈਕਟਰਸ ਰਹੇ ਫੈਡਰਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਡੋਨਾਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਦੇ ਜਿੱਤਦੇ ਔਰ ਲੋਕਲ ਲੈਵਲ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਰਿਪਬਲਿਕਨ ਰੈੱਡ ਵੇਵ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਦੇਖੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ। Craig, you're very, very welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back.
Craig, we're very happy to have you, although the circumstances could have been better. We were very pleased with the kind of campaign you ran. We thanked you for the decency and the honesty that you brought to the campaign. It's time to assess. It's time to see, and we would like to ask you, what do you think were the main factors which led to the victory, a resounding victory for President Donald Trump? Before we go to the local race, your race, and other races in New York, let's talk about the presidential race.
Yeah, and I think the local issues were similar to the federal issues. What we noticed, talking to people, it was the economy and the migrant crisis. Those were the two big issues. Inflation, even though the United States, is doing better than every other country in terms of inflation, you see worldwide the incumbents were getting blamed for the economic problems post-COVID. And also the migrant crisis, just the perception that Democrats were soft on the border and people's tax dollars were going to house migrants and give migrants debit cards. There was just a lot of resentment there because people are struggling. People see, strong, big increase in their groceries, 20-30%, and they feel like their government doesn't care about them. They see the money going to foreign governments, they see the money going to the migrants, but no one's taking care of people here. And that's just kind of the feedback that we've got, talking to the people in the community, that there's just a sense that Democrats are just perceived weak, and that Donald Trump was strong. He may be saying crazy things, and a lot of people admit, we know he's saying a lot of crazy things. We don't trust him, but he's strong, and he's going to help with the economy and boost the economy. And it was just that perception. And I think Democrats were just very bad at messaging and countering that narrative. And and unfortunately, we are living with going to be in a Trump world in the next 4 years, and it's really scary. Seeing all the appointments that Donald Trump is making, Matt Gaetz for Department of Justice, it's really, really scary. And I think
you have worked with the Department of Justice, right?
Yes.
And you missed the opportunity to work under Gaetz.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he's going to get confirmed by the Senate. I hope he doesn't, because he's already called for the abolishing the FBI and defunding the Department of Justice. Yeah, it's funny. Democrats get accused of defunding the police. They're actually calling for defunding the FBI. But yeah, it's very scary how, you know, Donald Trump is appointing absolute loyalists, and I think people are seeing, starting to get a little buyer's remorse right now. The number one Google search is how do I change my vote? So people, I think, are really, they voted for Donald Trump for economic reasons, but now they're realizing that he's, really crazy, and it's going to do a lot of bad things. So I think, we're we're all going to be in for a really scary 4 years.
Greg, before we look at the other side, let's talk about this. You think the underlying reason for the Democrats' defeat this time was their immigration policy?
Yeah, I think that played a huge factor, and I think that was one of the big issues. Most people, they support immigrants, but even the immigrant community was opposed to the migrant crisis, just because they thought, President Biden opened up the border, there's too many people coming in, and that it's hurting the taxpayer, the average taxpayer, and it was just that resentment that people's taxes were going towards housing migrants and giving migrants debit cards, and the government was not taking care of them. So they see the increase in their prices, in groceries, the cost of eggs, and they're like, well, why is the government not helping me? And I think there's this big disconnect that people were hurt. People, were really feeling the economic problems, and it's not Biden's fault. I think President Biden did a great job with the with the infrastructure package that he passed through and the economic recovery packages. But post-COVID, every country was suffering from inflation because of supply chain issues. It's just that the incumbents were being blamed for it. So unfortunately, it's just not a good time to be an incumbent and not a good time to be a Democrat right now. But I think the pendulum will swing. So I'm excited to see Democrats take back Suffolk County and turn Suffolk County blue in the next election.
Definitely we'll see what the present administration even does at the federal level, at the local level. But I just want to hear a lot of Democrats say this, that they tried to bring this bipartisan comprehensive bill, which President Trump did not allow to even be tabled, because he called his people and say, don't vote for this because we want to make it an election issue. But weren't the Democrats too late into the action? This was like after 3 years. It was in the 4th year that they brought this out. I don't know. They gave a pass for the first 3.5 years. Is that right?
Yeah, and that we tried that narrative that Democrats are the only ones trying to solve the problem, and Republicans just want to run on the chaos, and they had no interest in fixing the problem, and because they don't want to give Democrats a win with that bipartisan bill. But the percent, even when we talk to people about that, they're like, well, yeah, that's true, but Biden opened up the border. We didn't have this problem when Trump was president. Trump had the Remain in Mexico policy, and we didn't have the influx of migrants and asylum seekers coming in under Trump. So they blamed Biden for the migrant crisis. And I think, President Biden was a little bit too late to the game. I think he tried to go through proper channels and get congressional consent. To help secure the border. He did his executive order a little bit too late. It was probably an unconstitutional executive order, but for political purposes, it made a lot of sense. And I think President Biden was thinking more of doing what was right instead of what was doing was politically correct, and that ended up hurting him. And then Kamala's ties to the Biden administration, where she wouldn't distance herself at all to the Biden administration and said that she wouldn't do anything differently. People, blamed her. She wasn't, the border czar, and she couldn't distance herself from the border crisis, and she got a lot of the blame for it as well. And I think that was a huge factor, even though the Democrats were trying to fix the problem, and they were doing everything right for humanitarian purposes, but politically it was very, very bad and hard to message.
Do you have a comment on the timing of her candidature and not coming through, the regular process, the primary process?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think we should have had a primary. Uh, obviously President Biden should have stepped down sooner to allow for that primary.
Mhm.
But even after that, there still should have been a convention fight, because I think Kamala was just anointed, and I think a lot of people didn't know who she was and didn't get a chance to know her. And that was the other problem with I think with the Kamala's campaign was, she was attacking Donald Trump, and everyone knows how bad Donald Trump is, but no one knew why to vote for Kamala. She didn't really give people a reason why to vote for her, other than Donald Trump is crazy.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, I don't think she had the time to put together, a strong campaign. Not obviously, money wasn't a factor. She had over $1 billion,
Mhm.
and that didn't make a difference in all the battleground states.
Mhm.
So,
Craig,
yeah.
we'll talk more about that after a short break. ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਆ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟੀ ਜੀ break ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ The Way Forward. Craig, so there was some action on immigration by the Democrats. The economy, although was bad, but you said that's the way it was globally. It was just recovering from the pandemic, and by certain parameters, the economy has done well under Biden.
Yeah.
But there has been a messaging problem, and there has always been a messaging problem with the Democrats. I personally believe that the economy, at least in the last 100 years, has done better under Democrats than the Republicans. We'll talk more about that. But when we are talking about failures on part of the Democrats to do the right things, you have worked with the Department of Justice. You have worked with the government closely. I see you're back in the city. We see the Supreme Court behind you. I believe you're,
back to practicing law. This is the courthouse that they use to film Law and Order.
Okay, awesome. So you would be the person who can answer this for us. Do you think Department of Justice, the state machinery in New York Attorney General's office were slow in prosecuting Donald Trump? Why did it have to go in the fourth year, in the election year? Could they not foresee these things happening?
Yeah, I mean, the judicial system is very slow, and that's just the way our system is, and it takes a lot of time. And I expect, Donald Trump is going to escape a lot of the prosecution that he was facing. I think it makes sense for, Governor Hochul to pardon him, and also for the Department of Justice to, drop all charges against him now that he's going to be president of the United States. The public was very well aware of all of these charges and accusations, and it didn't faze them. And the public spoke, and Donald Trump is going to be our president for the next 4 years. So I don't think he's going to ever see the inside of a jail cell or be held accountable for his actions. In fact, I think it's just going to embolden him. And that's what we're seeing in his appointments right now. He's appointing people who were prosecuted by the agencies they're seeking to lead. And I think that's very harmful and dangerous to the country right now. And I'm really, really nervous about all these appointments that Donald Trump is, wants to fill the highest levels of government.
Craig, we started talking about messaging. We fail to understand where the Democratic Party stands right now. We've seen local races on the island. And I felt, and a lot of people, remark that it seems that most of the Democratic candidates, they run as Republicans. Their administration behaves as Democrats, but whatever they're promising, it sounds like Republicans. How do you react to that?
Yeah, the accusation that Democrats are run as Republican light, and that doesn't win elections. But I think that's because the Republicans kept on attacking Democrats for embracing far left policies, and we saw that with the attacks on Proposition 1, accusations that's going to allow men to play in women's sports, which is completely false. But glad to see that Proposition 1 successfully passed and carried Suffolk County by over 9 points. So people in Suffolk County voted for Donald Trump by 11 points, but also supported Proposition 1 by 9 points. So people who supported abortion rights also supported Donald Trump. But it's just, when Democrats play the defensive and they try to run as Republican light, they lose. So I think we can be very true to our values and be strong, because that's just the perception of Democrats being weak. When Democrats are not embracing their values and trying to run as Republican light, that it's just they're weak. The perception is they're weak, and people are looking for strong leadership. So I think Democrats need to be strong in their values and not be defensive, but stand up for what they believe is right. And I think they would be more successful.
We're not even sure if those values, what I would like to ask from you, what those values are. Republicans, can come out openly and say small federal government, state rights, individual liberties, right? 3 things. Is there a Democratic equivalent for that?
Well, that's the thing. Democrats don't have a good messaging. Democrats really just respond to Republican talking points. So I think we need to have a cohesive message.
You have all the lawyers, all the writers, all the media, all the Hollywood, and you don't have messaging.
Right, exactly. Our message was, we got to defend democracy. We got to protect women's rights. And that was not the message that people were interested in this election. This election, it was about the economy, and it was about pocketbook issues. People who voted for Donald Trump hated Donald Trump, but thought he was better for their pocketbook. And that's what we really saw in this election. And it's just the perception that you're right. Democrats, the economy does much better under Democrats. We've seen that historically. And Donald Trump's tariffs are going to be terrible for the economy. But it's all about that perception. And the perception was, the inflation is up. It's costing more people money at the groceries. Gas prices are up. Democrats are in power now, so it's the Democrats' fault. And Donald Trump was able to successfully run on that, like, I'm going to lower taxes, I'm going to cut costs, I'm going to reduce inflation. He doesn't have any idea how to do it, but that's what he talked about. And that was the message that really connected with the voters.
No, but he has concepts of a plan. Don't they work?
He's got concepts of a plan. He doesn't have a plan, he's got concepts of a plan. And, and by the people he's appointing, he doesn't have any real seriousness of governing or leading. He's just, it's all about, he's a snake oil salesman, and people bought what he was selling. And so it's, very, very unfortunate. But yeah, it's, even Elon Musk is preparing people that the economy is going to get worse under the Trump administration. And obviously Trump's going to blame everybody but himself for that.
I'll speak about Elon Musk and his appointment, and that I believe is very central to the philosophy of the 2 parties as of today. So I would like to ask you, do you see the appointment of Elon Musk and Ramaswamy as, Donald Trump, brushing them to the side, giving them advisory roles because he doesn't feel that importance of the work that they could do? Or do you think that's the central issue the country is in right now? Because, you might blame a lot of people, Donald Trump supporters, as racists and homophobes and all that. But there is a debate in this country, which I don't know why Democrats seem to overlook, is a lot of people, genuine conservatives, are concerned with the overexpansion of the government. They just think that government's role is increasing day by day for every small thing, and they're not happy about it. And that's why they have, they're happy to have Trump, who they think will cut the government. And do you think that appointment of Elon Musk and Ramaswamy, is it very central to what Trump is trying to do? Or do you think he has sideswiped them?
Well, obviously there's a ton of government waste, and that's been definitely a serious problem. But I think, Trump is just looking to reward his loyalists with appointments. And Elon Musk had no interest in, Senate confirmation appointment. So, Trump gave him this kind of like honorary appointment to reduce government waste. So, of all the Trump's appointments, Elon Musk is the one that doesn't defend me as much as some of the other ones that are more offensive. But if Elon Musk is able to cut government waste and spending, I think that'd be great. But I think it's more Elon Musk is more interested in deregulation because he doesn't want government involvement at all in his businesses. And Elon Musk invested $160 million in Trump's race and made $70 billion already since Trump is elected. So I think a lot of it is personal interest.
But Craig, but still, I would like to go a little deep into this. There's a perception that Republicans are better for business. Now, in a place like New York, we are seeing. I'm a practicing attorney. Because doing business in New York is becoming difficult. We fully support. Increase in minimum wage. We support the protections for the workers, but we have seen there are certain things, labor laws, they seem to be, holding the rich man or the small businessman. It has become difficult for them to run business, right?
Yeah.
We have seen that small business people, people who save and let's say buy real estate and have someone stay there on rent, and then they're not getting their rents. It has become more and more lengthy and difficult to recover their rents or remove the people. So does Democratic Party look at rich people as evil? Is that what we're seeing here?
No, not rich people are evil, but I do think there is overregulation. There is a lot of, you see too much regulation in banking industry and in the small businesses because you have multiple regulators that these entities have to report to. I think, one regulator is enough. So we do see overregulation. So I think, that is a message that it does, connect with a lot of these small business owners and the business community. So you got to find a fine line between too much regulation and too little regulation. And so I definitely think, some regulation is obviously very good, but you don't want too much regulation.
Great. This is an important point, and we would talk more about this after a short break. ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਜਾਰੀ ਰੱਖਾਂਗੇ। ਵੇਖਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਬ੍ਰੇਕ ਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ। ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ The Way Forward. Great. Before going to the break, we started talking about overregulation. A lot of people feel that doing business is becoming increasingly difficult in New York. And we have seen people leaving New York, some going to Florida, North Carolina, and some people even moving to Pennsylvania, across Philadelphia, which shows that it's not just the nice weather or the housing costs that's motivating them to leave the state. Democratic Party has a big tent. There are people, the needs of people on the island and the needs of people somewhere on the 5 boroughs could be different sometimes. And there is a great diversity in the ideology that we see within the party. Do you think a certain ideology, and may I say extreme left wing, is overshadowing the rest of the party?
Yeah, and I do. I think every Democrat is associated with the far left wing of the party, while not every Republican is associated with the far right wing of their party. And again, it's just that messaging issue that Democrat, even when I was campaigning, I'd have good conversations with people, and then they find out I'm a Democrat, and then they just accuse me of being, extreme liberal, just because I was a Democrat. And then again, that's just that perception that all Democrats are far left, extreme liberals, and that's not necessarily the case. But I think again, it's just that messaging problem that we have, that Democrats are associated with wokeism, with defund the police, even though most Democrats don't support those policies. But That's the problem. The Republicans are very successful of branding every single Democrat as a far left extremist when that is not the case.
But the way things are, the way we see the things, I think if a Republican is associated with the extreme right, I think that's a badge of honor for the Republicans right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, people don't blame the Republican Party for Marjorie Taylor Greene, and clearly they don't blame them for Matt Gaetz. They embrace them. They embrace the extremism, but they just say, oh, that's just one random person, or that doesn't represent the entire Republican Party. But the Republican Party caters to the far right wing of their party. But the concern is that the Democrats cater to the far left. And that's the problem. You don't get the moderate voices, the center left, the center right, because in our primary system, the power in picking up candidates. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely a problem that we have, and I think John Avalon tried to disassociate himself with some far left policies, but was not able to successfully do that. But Tom Suozzi, on the other hand, was very successful in separating himself from far left policies. And but yeah, it's definitely a challenge that a lot of people have in running for office.
Craig, let me ask you this again. Another issue with the Democrats, I see, when they say that the Latinos didn't vote for them as much, or they say Latinos voted in a different way. I don't understand what does that mean. Within the Latinos, there are people making 400,000 plus, and there are people making $30,000 and in a year, right? How can those two people? Different people have the same priorities. One is who is a business owner and who is concerned about those, labor laws which hurt his business, and the other one wants those protections. So they want to hear different messages. I think Republicans went with the precision. They, actually attacked who they were attacking, and Democrats have this habit of lumping everything together. It's not just cultural issues which matter to people. It's a pocketbook, right?
Correct.
What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. And that's what we saw. Donald Trump made gains with every single, demographic and group, because every single person is suffering in this post-pandemic world. Everyone is feeling inflation, and they feel like Democrats were out of touch, and that they don't care or understand these issues. And and that was definitely a problem where being a Democrat, it was just very, very bad this election, because it was just a very bad time to be a Democrat.
My sympathies with you, Craig. One more thing the Democrats are complaining about is the labor. The Teamsters, they said, didn't endorse Kamala Harris. And I would like to ask you as a Democrat, we have seen in the last 25, 30 years, manufacturing has left the country. Right. And it is the labor that got affected. What did the Democrats do, if anything, in the last 25, 30 years for labor? Did they even raise a finger anywhere?
Well, President Biden was recognized as one of the most pro-labor presidents ever. And President Biden had a tremendous amount of labor support. And labor, still strongly supported Democrats. But you have a lot of the rank and file members, because they're hurting financially, kind of like broke away. But we had tremendous support from labor in this election, and but it's just the middle class worker who the Democrats were trying to cater towards just wasn't believing that message that Democrats cared about them and were interested in helping solve their problems. They thought Donald Trump would be stronger on the economy. He would tackle the inflation, he would tackle the border crisis, and that more money would go into people's pockets here. And Donald Trump was just much better at messaging that.
Great. Let's talk about your local election. You see, on the island, people do talk about safety. I don't know if it's exaggerated or it's real or how it's, how the perception is created, but people do feel that if you go to city, if you go on a subway, if you're late, you don't feel very safe. They have heard things like defund the police. They have heard those extreme left-wing propaganda, which they call, and they see that bad for economy. They see that bad for the country. Uh, it might work in the city, but most of the people, I believe, on the island are pretty centrist. They might turn left or right, center left or center right, but they still stay in the center. How does that affect local elections on the island?
Yeah, and again, as a matter of perception, and we saw crime go down significantly on Long Island, but the people's perception just was that Democrats are soft on crime, and a lot of that was left over from the bail reform laws, where Lee Zeldin was very successful running on bail reform, blaming Democrats for being soft on crime, and again, it was just bad messaging. And I'm in the city now, and it's completely safe. All the scare tactics. I mean, that came up a lot in my campaign, that people are too scared to go into the city. I'm standing on the streets of Manhattan right now, and it's totally safe. It's just those fear tactics, and that Republicans are just very successful running on fear.
Craig, we will take a short break here, and we'll talk more about your campaign when we come back. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਦੇ ਰਹੋ The Way Forward. Craig, now let's talk about your election. I would like to ask you, how was the experience?
Well, I am very proud of the campaign that we ran, and I'm so grateful for all the support that we received. We overperformed in our race. We did a great job. Unfortunately, it was just, we got caught up in a red wave in Suffolk County, which definitely hurt. But, I'm extremely proud of our campaign. I met a ton of great people. It was an incredibly rewarding experience, but very risky for me. I gave up my job as a judge to run for office. I haven't been making money for a year. That's why I'm back in the city now working, trying to finally make some more money for myself. But I am so grateful that I don't have to ask people for money anymore, because that was the worst part about campaigning. Absolutely hated asking people for money. But very, 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 very proud of what what we were able to accomplish, and made a lot of inroads. And I was at the Huntington Democrats meeting yesterday, and people were incredibly grateful. And I'm so appreciative of all the friends that I made and all the people that I met on this campaign.
No, we are so appreciative of the message that you gave, and it's we understand it's not easy to run honest, straight campaigns. Again, campaign finance is something that's very, very fundamental that we should be talking about. And those are the issues that need to be addressed. And people are tired. That's why, Donald Trump might not have have solutions, but he identified some problems, and people react to that. They will see, maybe he gives some solutions, but people might be disappointed, in some time, and look for something else. But there are fundamental questions in this country which need to be addressed. I'll take the advantage of having you here, you being a lawyer, with all your experience, all your wisdom. I'll tell you, two basic, may I say, grievances people have, may I say what they hold as a grudge against the system, is the expansion of government everywhere, and this idea that the government is just doing too much. Welfare, this is not what America is supposed to be. Lots of people were not happy with the $25,000 down payment that Kamala Harris was promising. There were people talking about, somebody decides to go for expensive education, then makes a lot of money out of it. Why should I pay for that bill? Those kind of things. Yeah. But I would take the advantage of having you here and understand from you. Article 1 says about welfare. What is your understanding of welfare in this country? People say there was a time when let's say men in the country went to war after Second World War. They died for the country. It was responsibility of the country to take care of their families, of their widows, of their children. Uh, if today an 18 or 19-year-old decides to get pregnant, why does the state have to pay for her welfare? This is a very fundamental question, which I don't know if Democrats take that seriously, because a lot of Republicans are very unhappy because of that. And, Elon Musk's appointment may be that central thing. And that's why I said in the beginning that, how much importance you give to that question would tell me how important do you think this issue is? What do you think about welfare in the country?
Yeah, and I think that's the perception that people are getting handouts that generate a lot of resentment. We saw that with immigrants, opposing the migrant crisis, or people who had student loans opposing student loans forgiveness because they already paid off their student loans. So it's a question about fairness. Like if they work, why someone who doesn't work, should get any benefits. And so yeah, I mean that's kind of like what we saw. People just opposing welfare in general, but people like welfare programs. People support Social Security and Medicare. What's great about our country is like if you lose your job, the government will help pay to help you get back on your feet. So these are good beneficial things that which makes America great is that we support our communities. But I think what people don't want is people to take advantage of these systems and not work or contribute to society. And I think that's kind of like the concern that a lot of people had, that their tax dollars are helping other people, but those people don't want to help themselves, or they're taking advantage of the system. And it's not necessarily the case, because the cost for welfare systems are just a fraction of the cost of it. Our government, most of our money goes to military expenses, but it's just that perception that everyone wants to be treated fairly, and no one wants anyone to get a handout when they have to work hard for it.
Yeah, correct. You see, no one knows the numbers. No one, people are not that sophisticated. It's just the idea of fairness. People feel that this is something that's not right. But here's my question, Craig. The answer that you gave me is the answer that every Democrat gives, is the answer every Republican gives. That who are these people who are making these policies which are so against what everyone believes in?
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. You're trying to do the right thing, where you want to provide for a child who doesn't have the support. And so you still want to do the right thing, and you want to help people, and that's where a lot of this comes from, is the desire to help people. Because we don't want people to be homeless, we don't want people to be starving. So we do want to take care of the people in our community, because I think that just benefits society as a whole. But I think more needs to be done to ensure that people aren't taking advantage of the system, because you do have a small fraction of people that take advantage of the system. And I think people get really angry when they see that happening.
So it's more of an abuse issue rather than the system issue, like the whole ideology behind it.
Right. And that's the same thing with bail reform. You had 99% of people showing up to their court appearances, no problem at all. But you have that small fraction who they get released and then they commit another crime, and then they just blame the whole system, for that that person that commits the crime. Or same thing with the migrants. Most migrants are none of them are committing crimes, but you got that one person that commits a crime. All migrants are bad. And it's just that negative fear tactic narrative that the Republicans are very successful in using. Is no system is going to be 100% perfect, but they find that one flaw and blame the entire system for it. And and I think that's just very, very unfortunate.
And for some reason, they have been better in messaging for some time, I would say. If you talk about real achievements, they're not much. At least, my research here doesn't show much to show for when it comes to Republicans. All the major legislations we see have been done under Democratic administrations in the last 100 years at least, right? But I don't know where this messaging problem lies.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is Democrats need to explain things. And when you start explaining, you lose. Republicans, they have very succinct, Trump's message, make America great again, secure the border, build the wall. These are succinct messages. You know, Democrats need to explain things, and when it's hard to get your message across when it's very complex.
Craig, do you see the Democrats coming back in power, at least on the island sometime soon?
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to say this, but I think the Donald Trump presidency is going to be very, very bad, and I think it's going to convince a lot of people who took a chance on him this election to come back into the Democratic fold next election. The pendulums always swing, and I think the pendulum swung too far to the Republican side, but I think it's going to swing back to the Democratic side.
His presidency being bad means bad days for our people. We don't wish that. We wish him success, successful presidency, success of the nation. But we just hope that some of the extreme ideas that are being floated, he doesn't get much success in those. That's something we definitely hope for. And, we hope that these people don't attack the guardrails which are there, which prevented a lot of things that that administration tried to do when they were around the last time. Isn't that so?
Yeah, and it's really scary because I think a lot of Republicans are afraid to stand up to Donald Trump. Republicans who did stand up to Donald Trump lost their job, and then get attacked professionally. And so I really hope there's a lot of Republicans who have the courage to stand up to Donald Trump. And we'll see that when it comes to the confirmation of Matt Gaetz for Department of Justice. I think the majority of all Republicans oppose his nomination, but they don't want to oppose Donald Trump. So if we get enough Republicans to have the courage to stand up to Donald Trump, I think that would be a very good sign. But if not, it's going to be a very scary 4 years.
Craig, will we see you knocking doors again?
What's that?
Will we see you knocking doors again anytime soon?
Oh, yeah. There's definitely talks about, what's next for me. I've definitely been approached. I'm definitely going to be having those conversations. So, stay tuned. I definitely want to stay involved in the community.
Craig, we wish you all the very best. Thank you so much for taking out the time today. Thank you so much for the campaign you ran, and we wish you all the very best with your, knocking doors the next time, and your private practice for now, which you say that you're going back to. Thank you so much. We wish you all the very best.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. AC साडा आज दा शो असी गल कीती as we said कि बड़ा ड्रामेटिक रिजल्ट असी वेखिया रेड वेव देखी गई है पूरे मुल्क विच प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ਨੂੰ बहुत सारियां वोटां मिलियां ਜਿਹੜੀ पॉपुलर वोट है ਜਿਹੜੀ जनरली डेमोक्रेट्स ਨੂੰ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਇਸ ਵਾਰ ਡੋਨਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਟ ਡੋਨਲਡ ਟਰੰਪ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਪॉपुलर ਵੋਟ ਹੈਗੀਆਂ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਤਕਰੀਬਨ 5 ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਮਿਲੀਅਨ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਡੈਮੋਕ੍ਰੈਟਿਕ ਓਪੋਨੈਂਟ ਤੋਂ ਤੇ ਇੱਕ ਰੈਡ ਵੇਵ ਦੇਖੀ ਗਈ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਆਪਣੇ ਵਾਅਦਿਆਂ ਉੱਪਰ ਕਿਸ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਪੂਰੇ ਉਤਰਦੇ ਐਂਡ ਆਈ ਹੋਪ ਕਿ ਕਈ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਬੜੀ ਐਕਸਟ੍ਰੀਮ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਹੀਆਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਕਸੈਸ ਨਾ ਮਿਲੇ ਬਟ ਅਦਰਵਾਈਜ਼ ਇੱਕ ਸਕਸੈਸਫੁਲ ਪ੍ਰੈਜ਼ੀਡੈਂਸੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਵਿਸ਼ ਯੂ ਆਲ ਦਾ ਵੈਰੀ ਬੈਸਟ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਬੇਹਤਰ ਹੋ the way forward.